welcome to HealthHope. I'm Dr. Paul Yim, and I'll be your host for this episode. Today's title is God's Health Plan for the Creationist and the Evolutionist. If you're like many people, you may be confused by the numerous diets and fads that are out there. How can you find the right diet for you? Today, we'll explore and search for the true original diet, and I believe you will discover the perfect diet that will lead to true health and wellness. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy today's program. I also call this program True Health Insurance because you'll discover that God's health plan not only gets you healthy, but keeps you healthy. I'm sure you've heard that Obamacare got passed. The Republicans tried to defeat it in court. The Republicans had their health care plan. The Democrats had their health plan. Even the AMA wants to get their 2 cents worth in, the American Medical Association. Well, we know what it's all really about, right? Money. There's just so much sickness and disease going around and not enough money to cover all of that. So really it's an issue of how do we allocate the money appropriately? Well, I'm not so foolish as to get caught up in the middle of that hot political debate. So we're going to leave all that behind and we're going to discover today God's health plan. Now, before we begin, let me put in a disclaimer. The following presentation is general information only. It is not intended to render any specific medical, legal, or accounting advice. For a specific health problem, please seek the advice of a competent doctor, lawyer, banker, neighbor, or mother-in-law. Now that we've got that out of the way, the lawyers also wanted me to note that I am not advertising or selling insurance policies. I'm not in the insurance business, and Dr. Yim is not an insurance agent licensed in the state of Tennessee. Now that we've made the suits happy, let's get right into the problem. We know the problem. Over the past 100 years, disease and sickness is just exploding at a fast rate. Heart disease, 100 years ago, it made up 12% of all cause of death. In the year 2000, it more than tripled to 39%. Cancer, 100 years ago, made up 6% of all cause of death, and in the year 2000, it had more than quadrupled to over 25%. And do we think the problem is getting better or worse? Worse, friends, right? The problem is not only sickness and disease and death, it is money. In 2008, total U.S. healthcare spending was over $2.3 trillion in the United States. That averages out to over $7,000 per person, or for a family of four, over $30,000 in healthcare spending. Now, understand, these are averages. So that doesn't mean every single person in America consumed over $7,000 worth of healthcare bills in that year. But it's averaged out that way. We know that there are low consumers, right? Like children and young people. Some of them don't even see the doctor once in a year. And then there are high consumers. For example, I see patients in the nursing home, and one nursing home patient will cost over $100,000 in healthcare costs between the hospital, medications, and the nursing home per year on average. So when you average the high consumers and the low consumers, it comes out to over $7,000 per person in the year 2008. And do we expect the problem to be getting better or worse? Worse, right? They're projecting that in the year 2019, in less than 6 years, the costs are going to double to over $60,000 per family of four per year in the United States. Now, an interesting chart is the state of the religious union. Purdue University did a study where they found denominations based on religion, religious denominations and religions, and compared their obesity rate. And here's what they found. Leading the pack is the Baptists with over 30% obesity rate. Look at the chart there on your screen, and you'll see at the bottom, note that these religions like Islam, Hindu, Buddhist, and Jewish religion, their obesity rate is very low. One common thing that I learned from that chart was that the low obesity religions are ones that have dietary restrictions as part of their religion. Isn't that interesting? The Bible summarizes our problem in this way. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. That's Hosea 4:6. Now, really, it's not a lack of knowledge. What it is we've lost the original knowledge. But thanks be to God, in these modern times, God is shining light on His true original knowledge. Now, to begin, let's go over man's minimum health care. If you look on the chart on your screen, I titled this Man's Minimum Health Care because basically if you go in for a once-a-year annual wellness or a physical, this is about what you would get at a minimum. Maybe an EKG if you're the right age, maybe aortic aneurysm testing if you've ever smoked, vaccinations, immunizations, blood tests like cholesterol and diabetes, and blood pressure check for hypertension screening. So these make up what I call man's minimum health care. Now let's turn to God's maximum health care. I titled this God's maximum health care because God's plan not only gets you well, but keeps you well. Here they are on your screen: nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, fresh air, rest, and trust in God. The acronym that this spells is New Start for easy memorization. So New Start, N-E-W-S-T-A-R-T. Today, we don't have time to go into all of that. Please watch my other program called Total New Start, Total Body Health, Totally Practical, to go over that completely, New Start. But today, we're just going to go over the two, nutrition and water. If you walked into the bookstore or got on Amazon.com and looked in the book section under diets, why, you would find literally hundreds of diets, right? There's the Atkins diet, there's the Chip diet, the Engine 2 diet, now the Paleo diet, right? Low carb, low fat, Zone, Weight Watchers diet. Why, there are so many diets, and how is a person off the street supposed to know which diet is best for them if they're not medically trained or trained in dietetics? Today, after today's program, you're going to be able to select any book in the bookstore and know whether this is the right diet or the wrong diet for you. Now, before we get into the diets, first we have to back up and go over philosophy, origins. But trust me, I promise this won't be boring like high school philosophy class was. We have to back up and decide, do we believe that we are here as human beings, human bodies, because of evolution or creation? Evolution or creation? Some people say maybe both, and others say, well, I don't know. But whether you believe in evolution or creation, you would agree that those are the only two serious options, right? Serious explanations and theories for how we came to be here on planet Earth today as human beings. Now, there are a couple of other theories out there. For example, like the Hindus, they have their theory of cosmology. For example, the little Hindu boy asked his father, "Why, Father, what is holding up the earth?" And the father says, "Why, son, the earth is standing on the back of giant elephants." "Well, Father, what's holding up the elephants?" "Why, son, the elephants are standing on the back of a giant cosmic turtle." Well, that's a nice little story, but ever since 1969, when we shot a man to the moon, and they turned around and looked back at planet Earth, and there were no elephants and there were no turtles, no one believes that story anymore, right? It's a nice little story you can tell your children if you want to, but nobody takes it seriously in the debate over origins, right? There's another theory about aliens. Maybe aliens came and sprinkled the planet with some protein to get it kick-started, right? That's called panspermia. Panspermia is a theory where even Francis Crick entertained the possibility of panspermia as an explanation. Why do you think he would consider that being a Nobel Prize winner? Because he understood how mathematically it is so difficult, the odds are so little that you could evolve humans without getting aliens to kickstart the process with some protein. Okay? So, let's start with evolution. We're going to cover both sides, so you creationists can sit down and rest a while we cover the evolutionists. Evolutionists say we are here today because we evolved from who? The apes, right? Specifically the chimps. So if Darwin's kins are chimpanzees, I'm going to give you a multiple choice quiz question now. What do chimps drink? I made it easy, a multiple choice. A, Coke, B, sweet tea, C, Red Bull, or D, water. That's right, water. Now let's go on to what do chimps eat? And I've made this easy too, multiple choice. A, burgers, B, pizza, C, fried chicken, or D, fruits and leaves. That's right, you got an A. Fruits and leaves. In fact, chimps eat so much fruits and leaves that they are not called carnivores and they're not called omnivores. Friends, they're not even called vegetarian. They are actually called frugivores, and Darwin himself called chimps frugivores. Chimps eat so much fruit and vegetables. Over 70% of their diet is fruit. 28% is flowers and leaves, and about 2% are insects. In fact, their diet, if you checked out the carb, fat, protein composition of their diet, they eat an 88% carb diet. Wow, so much for low carb, right? Now, the evolutionists say that monkeys and apes have been evolving for 60 million years, and that humans have only been evolving for about 500,000 or maybe 1 million years. Now, think about that. Monkeys and apes have been evolving for 60 million years so that their current diet of drinking water and eating fruits and leaves predominantly, they are fine-tuned for peak performance. Would we agree? I mean, if you had a race climbing up a tree with them, why, they would be up a 100-foot tree lickety-split while you are on the second or third branch huffing and puffing trying to catch up with that monkey. They are at peak performance on this diet. Do we really think that the first human that evolved out of that ape, all of a sudden he needs a heavy grease and meat diet? Oh no, friends. In fact, evolution would say, oh no, you can't do that. You can't make that sudden change. Why, you would have to make small, one mutational changes in their diet for over millions of years. Why, it would probably take 30 to 60 million years to reverse their diet so that they would actually thrive on heavy grease and meat diet and low fruits. So as you can see from this chart on your screen, the evolutionist diet is really predominantly fruits, some leaves, maybe a few grains, beans, and nuts, which would qualify as seeds, and a little bit of insects. You're welcome to eat insects if you like. If you are an evolutionist, you would have to do that in order to be a purist. Now, you might say, well, Dr. Yim, that's just your theory of evolution. Nobody else believes that. Well, here on the screen are several other websites of evolutionists, friends. These are people who do not believe in God. They believe in naturalism or evolution, who say that we are supposed to be eating fruits and vegetables, right? Frugan life, right? 100% vegetarian baby. Humans are naturally plant eaters by michaelbluejay.com. There's Mark Blackburn, an MBA, who says that naturalism and the anthropology of the human diet will show what the ideal human diet should be. Now, let's shift over from evolution to creation. If we believe in creation, that means that we believe that we are created, right? If we are created, that means we believe there must be a creator. Now, we usually call that a god or higher power. But if we believe in creation, we believe that there must have been a creator. And if we look at our human bodies, there must be a design, right? Now, you might say, Dr. Yim, how do you know? Well, let me tell you, when the Creator created humans, He didn't just say, John, blob, appear. He didn't do that. How do we know that? Because when we go into the surgery suite and you cut open a person's body, do you just see a random mass of blob? Absolutely not, right? There is an intricate design, isn't there? Intricate details. Nervous system, arterial system, venous system, right? Digestive system. And so we see here that we are designed. Now, the question is, if we are designed, do we have a diet designed for us, right? In Genesis 1:29, we do see a diet designed for us. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant which is on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And what about drinks? How about in the Garden of Eden, when humans were created, what were we created to drink? Was there a Coke tree in the Garden of Eden? Or how about a sweet tea tree? Absolutely not, right? In Genesis 2:10, it says, now a river flowed out of Eden to water the garden, right? So we were created to eat seed-bearing plants and fruits and to drink water. Now, when God prescribed the diet for humans, this verse, Genesis 1:29, comes immediately after God created humans. Now I want you to think about that. When God created Adam, do you think that he created him with a full stomach or an empty stomach? That's right, an empty stomach. And God knew as soon as he would wake up and open his eyes, this creature was going to be hungry, and he wanted to make sure he knew what he could eat or what he should eat. And so humans were designed to eat seed-bearing plants and fruits and to drink water. So the chart for creationists is fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, and nuts. Let's test that chart. Fruits. Are fruits one of the things that God said you could eat? Absolutely. That's the easiest one. God said eat fruit, and there's fruit, right? How about vegetables? Where would that fit in? Well, are vegetables herbs in the field that bear seed? And the answer is absolutely yes. In fact, try planting a vegetable garden without seed. Right, you can't do it, right? So vegetables are herbs in the field, plants in the field that bear seed. God says you can eat that. How about grains? Grains, do they have seeds in them? That's right, grains are seeds, aren't they? Now, let's take that example. We have wheat berry, we have corn kernel or brown rice kernel. What would happen if you refined that and took the germ and the husk and the fiber off? When you plant that, what's left over, that little piece of white rice or a wheat berry without the germ and the fiber, what would grow out of the garden? Nothing would grow, right? It's no longer a seed, is it? It's just pure sugar, pure starch. So grains, whole grains, are one of the things that God said you could eat, even though many diets out there say don't eat any grains, right? It's got carbs in it. It'll make you fat. God says you could eat that. How about beans? Do beans have seeds in them? And the answer is yes. Beans, in fact, they are seeds, right? Think about Jack and the Beanstalk. He put a bean in the earth. The next morning when he came out, there was a beanstalk, right? Bean plant. How about nuts? Do nuts have seeds in them? They too are seeds, aren't they? Think about the squirrel in the winter, in the fall. Gets a nut, plants it in the ground. If that squirrel wasn't able to find it over the winter, what will come up the next spring? A little plant, right? God says you can eat nuts. Now, one caveat there I want you to think about is think about the packaging that God made the nuts in. Do you think that God wanted us to eat bags and bags of nuts at one sitting, or just a few at a time? That's right. Nuts are hard to crack, right? And so God intended for us to eat just a handful of nuts every day, not bags and bags at a time. Now, by the way, what about the animals? What were the animals to eat when God created the earth? You just turn to the next verse, Genesis 1:30, and it tells you what God made animals to eat. And to all the beasts of the earth, I give every green plant for food. That's right. Animals were designed to be vegetarian too. They weren't designed to hunt and kill and shed blood. All animals were to eat plants. Now, you might ask, well, Dr. Yim, what about the carnivorous animals, like lions and dogs with these canine teeth? Aren't they designed to rip apart meat and other animals? Well, look on the screen. I want to introduce you to little Tyke. Now, on this picture, it'll be hard to tell which one is little Tyke, right? The lioness is little Tyke, and her best friend is Becky, the little lamb. Isn't that precious? Let me tell you a story about little Tyke. Little Tyke is a vegetarian lioness who was almost killed when she was a newborn by her mother. She was rescued, but she refused to eat any blood and any meat. The sanctuary keeper, the person who had this animal rehabilitation farm, tried to sneak food that had blood and meat in it because he was afraid that this baby lion cub would die. One day a friend came to visit him, and he said, "Hey, let me show you this baby lion cub that I just can't get to eat. I'm afraid he's going to starve to death. She's going to starve to death." So the friend showed him, and he said, "Well, you know why, don't you?" And he turned to Genesis 1:30, and he read that verse where it says all animals could eat plants. And from then on, that owner never tried to give him meat or blood. This lioness grew up to be a very healthy lioness and was as docile as could be. All of her friends were barnyard animals. Little lamb Becky, as you see in the photo. All the other barnyard animals, not an ounce of aggressive behavior in this lioness her whole life. In fact, she was so gentle that when thunder and lightning would strike, she would jump into the arms of her owner, who almost broke her back. You can read that story in the book Little Tyke by George Westbow. Now, after I read that book, my wife and I, we thought, well, if a lioness could be vegetarian, I wonder if our dog Tio could be vegetarian. So we searched on the internet, and yes, we found a vegetarian dog food, PetGuard. So we fed Tio PetGuard. Now we were not sure if he would take to it, but he took to it right away. And now Tio at that time was 7 years old, okay, getting up there in years for a dog. He's 7 years old, and when we fed him that vegetarian dog food, in 1 month, he was like a baby puppy again. In fact, my wife and I were sitting on the sofa one day, and all of a sudden, we saw Tio right between us. And this was a sofa that our dog had never in his 7 years been able to jump on top of that sofa. So I turned to my wife and said, "Honey, did you bring Tio up here?" And she said, "Well, no, honey. Did you bring Tio up here?" And I said, "No." And we turned to Tio and said, "Tio, how did you get up here?" And he said, "PetGuard." No, that part's not true, but it is true that he did jump higher onto that sofa after eating that vegetarian dog food, and now he is as healthy as can be 3 years later. Now, I call this diet the perfect diet number 1 in the Bible, because this is a diet that God said was very good. You see in Genesis 1:31, it says, "And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good." So that's perfect diet number 1. There are 3 perfect diets in the Bible, and that's the first one. So according to God, our diet is to be primarily fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, and some nuts. Okay? So that's the chart you see on your screen. Now, I'm going to show you modern day proof that this is true. If you go home tonight and on CNN you watch, you know how they have the health segment or like these health minute type things? When was the last time you saw on CNN, like for example, Sanjay Gupta gets on there, and have you ever heard him say something like, "Doctors have just discovered a new vitamin in country ham that will make you live to 100 years old"? And so you see, according to God and creation, the diet should be primarily fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, and then some nuts. And if we stick to this diet has promise for us of health and wellness. So according to creation, our diet should be predominantly fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, and some nuts. Okay? This wraps up the first half of God's health plan for the Creationist and Evolutionist. Please join me for part 2 of God's health plan, where we will continue exploring and see modern day evidence that this is true. And remember to check out our website, www.health-hope.org. That's health-hope.org. Thank you. One question I get in my live presentations is, Dr. Yim, how much water should I drink? And doesn't the water that's contained in my food count toward my water requirement for the day? Well, the answer to that question is a little bit more complicated than you think. The amount of water that you need is, we went over that in the Total New Start Total Body Health presentation, so don't miss that presentation. But in there we went over a general guideline that each person needs about a ½ ounce per pound per day of water. Now, regarding the water that's already found in foods, the way I tell my patients to think about water is think of it as a salt eliminator. You see, if you were eating like the monkeys and the apes, which is predominantly all fruit, I would say yes, you probably need very little water because the water contained in the fruit will meet most of your needs. But what if you're eating the average American diet with about 4,000 to 6,000 milligrams of sodium per day? You better believe you're going to need water to flush that sodium out. You see, urine has about 1.2 grams of sodium per liter, per quart. And so if you're going to eat the low salt diet, which is around 2 to 2.4 grams per day, you would need about 8 cups a day to to drain that salt out of your body through the urine. What if you're eating 4,000 to 6,000 milligrams, which is more like the typical American diet? You would need up to a gallon a day, 3 quarts to a gallon a day, just to eliminate that salt in the diet. Common sense tells you that if you drank salt water, you can't count that toward your water allotment because you're getting even more thirsty, you see? And so think of water as a salt eliminator. The higher salt diet you eat, the more water you need. The lower salt diet you eat, the less water you need. May God bless you as you continue your journey in health and hope.